And just like that, in the blink of an eye, we are already more than a month into Deltarune's Chapter 3 and 4. And it is just insane to think about, because we definitely have a lot more questions than answers, and that got people like me insane. But yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be recording again, and especially on another theory video on one of my favorite games, being Deltarune. And especially with the planned 2026 release of Chapter 5, we don't have as much time to theorize on these two chapters. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for the intro. So yeah, guess what I'm gonna do for this video is I'm gonna go back to my previous theories from my previous theory video, maybe clear them up, maybe add on to them, not really sure, and then eventually get to all of these new theories and such. So sit back, relax, grab some snacks, nice Cody Kenshin reference, and enjoy. One of the first things I touched upon in my previous video was what was up with Spamton, and what was his whole deal. And now that Chapter 3 is out, his whole story kind of got expanded. We learned that he had a good, close relationship with Tenna, and how they were kind of working together. For what, it wasn't exactly said, but yeah, a couple things that was cleared up was that the one interaction that they have in Chapter 3, where if you have the deal maker by beating Spamton Neo through Mercy, Spamton actually comes out and talks to Tenna, but Tenna doesn't recognize him for some reason. So we learned that Spamton definitely looked different in the past. And one of the other major plot points was in the secret minigames, by getting S rank. We learned that Tenna was going to, make Spamton famous. He was going to put him on TV because he wanted to learn how to be a quote-unquote big shot. He wanted to learn how to plug in and make it big. So clearly there's a theme of trying to, whatever becoming a big shot means. Like, is it like transcending the borders of the game? We have no idea. But yeah, again, it is just amazing to see Spamton again after Chapter 2, because he's definitely my favorite character. And definitely a lot of people's, most popular character to talk about. And now that Tenna's in the picture with Spamton, it is, obviously getting the thoughts going, on what possibly happened that kind of broke up their friendship and their whole plan, I guess. But yeah, I guess there's the addition to Spamton's lore, and I'm all for it. Next thing I talked about was Ralsei's suspicious behavior in Chapter 2. Not as much as Chapter 1 because it's not really seen, but definitely now that Chapter 3 and 4 has released, you could say it kind of got cleared up, but I still think he's hiding even more than after Chapter 4's whole kerfuffle that happened with Susie. We see Ralsei dropping all this lore, and yeah, and again, finally that caused Susie to crash out, just tell us all this stuff. But I think Ralsei is a little more suspicious than ever, if anything, because he doesn't want us to see the end of the prophecy, and this whole presentation on, we're not real, so go make real friends type of stuff. It's kind of heartbreaking to think about, but again, if anything, it just promotes his, borderline suspicious behavior, and, as to what Ralsei's true goal is, if he even has one. But again, it still remains a mystery to this day on what Ralsei actually is in the light world, because he confirmed himself that he is a Darkener, but for some reason at the beginning of every chapter he's like, oh, I felt a dark presence and hurried over. For some reason we don't know how he keeps appearing, but it's very odd to like theorize about, because like yeah, everything he does say does kind of make sense, but again, on the other hand, it can still lead to a lot more questions regarding him and this whole prophecy shtick. Because like he tries so hard to, like not wanting us to worry and all that, like a real true friend. Like props to him for that. But still, I feel like there's a lot more that he's not telling us, even though he told us like, oh, I don't know when to what to say when to drop all this information, the rules of this game, and all that type of stuff. And again, it's a lot to take in, and especially considering that like if you do the weird route, the only change in chapter 3 is that one dialogue when Rousey is like, oh, you should ask how Susie's doing. But if you ask how Rousey's doing and you say, I'm going to the festival with Noelle, Rousey's like, I think that's a bad idea. I don't think you should do that, blah 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 blah. So, right, that's another thing that is kind of crucial. I feel like Rousey knows about us, the player, and the difference between us and Chris. Because every chapter has had the moment where Rousey is like, okay, let's close our eyes and think about what Susie's doing. I feel like off screen, Rousey is talking to Chris and only Chris while we're not watching, or trying to plot something that, again, that's not monitored by us. Now, and yeah, I feel like that is the more important thing to think about. But, again, in the end, I still feel like Rousey has secrets, despite him telling all of this stuff that we know from these 2 newest chapters. Next, I touched on Jevel's whole backstory in chapter 1. So in summary, we learned that Jevel used to be the court jester alongside Sham, who used to be the court mage, and they were friends until Jevel one day went mad, leading him to be locked away. Now, from these future chapters, we can put together that Jevel probably went insane by the Shadow Crystal. He probably made contact with the Knight, and then eventually he got a Shadow Crystal, and then he had to get locked away. What the Shadow Crystal does, we're not sure, but I will probably touch upon it later on in the video. But right now, it's good to see that chapter 4, when we talk to the king in his cell, he actually brings up Jevel. He talks about how, like the reason why the king kind of went a little insane was because Jevel told him himself that the knight is all powerful and the king would be even more powerful through the creation of the dark fountains. Now, it is interesting to see how Jevel was, kind of brought back into his backstory. I'm really happy to see how his backstory kind of evolved even more, and how he ties into the story even more. Like, now with these future chapters, we can fully piece together that Jevel's story goes that he was the court jester. One day he made contact with the knight. He got a shadow crystal. Through it, he gained some sort of forbidden knowledge, and then he went insane through the knowledge. Then he got locked away, and then we ended up freeing him from his cell, even though he thought he was the only free one for whatever reason. Now, at the end of the day, this can tie into the theme of freedom, whatever the hell it talks about. Like, Jevel and Spamton have the correlation in the sense that both of them kind of went insane, and both of them hold the shadow crystal when you beat their boss fight, which is obviously mostly interesting. But yeah, again, it was really cool to see mention of Jevel again, and hopefully even more in the future. Next topic of discussion was probably the most important one, which was Snowgrave, or the Weird Route, where we influenced Noelle into becoming stronger, and eventually learning the Snowgrave, in which we freeze Berkeley. Now, obviously the most important part about this route is the deviation from the main route. That there are changes in dialogue, changes in circumstances, and this definitely followed through in chapter 4, because we see that Noelle is a lot less fearful and even like tries to start conversations. Well, like again, for example, at the beginning of chapter 4, when we're in the church, while Chris and Susie are talking, both are trying to plan. Instead of Susie asking Noelle to come over, Noelle invites them over, like herself, and of course that evolves into going to Noelle's house, and eventually Noelle asking Chris if they want to talk alone, because Noelle wanted to tell Chris about yesterday, which is chapter 2, and what happened in her whole dream and such, to the point where obviously it's been bothering her a little too much. But in this interaction, in this whole conversation, Noelle makes a breakthrough in the fact that obviously Chris has been acting a lot more different recently than how they were in the past, and there is a difference between us, the players, or the soul, and Chris. So I feel like Noelle is the closest to finding out that we are two different people. And again, it all boils down to the question that, like, why does Chris like have like us in them, in their soul to begin with? Yeah, I'd say that's probably like another theory I would go into more in depth when I talk about the other new theories as well. But yeah, again, the main point is that we're doing this route, even though like no one wants it to happen. Like Noelle is obviously still trying to be her kind and caring self, looking out for Chris, and Chris is apparently doing things behind our back, the player's back, because in one of the conversations Noelle has with Chris, Noelle is like, "Oh yeah, I couldn't sleep. I went out on my porch, and then I saw you." And then Chris apologized and stuff like that. Like apologized for doing all this, said it was a prank and stuff. So what we do know is that I guess when we're not playing Deltarune, I guess stuff happens behind our backs while we're not monitoring. Which is, I mean, again, it's another theory coming up. But yeah, again, the main preface of this is trying to, I guess, like almost completely like break Noelle. I don't know how, but I guess like this. And clearly, Chris does not want this happening either, which is a very, very interesting plot point. Next, I kind of speculated on who would be the next possible Lightners, and I would say it got proven, because we got Toriel, we got Undyne for brief moments, and Gerson, which was again a very big point in chapter 4, and this can kind of confirm corpse theory in a way, because we see that Gerson is just dust in an urn. Meanwhile, the Dark World clearly reanimated him if we're able to talk to him and fight him as the secret boss, right? So again, I would say it is only partially proven, because although we didn't see much, like to chapter 3, Toriel was just sleeping the whole time. Undyne we saw for like 30 seconds, not even, and before getting taken away by the knight. And then yeah, again we saw Gerson. Now the whole thing that I kind of thought of was, oh, because characters have icons in their dialogue box, they'll appear. Maybe they will in the future, but not yet. So I would kind of hang on to this theory for now. But yeah, again, it's kind of good to see that we got a few more Lightners in the Dark World now. Last thing I somewhat touched upon was the Shadow Crystals and the eggs. Now, first getting into the eggs, I don't even know if they're important, because as obscure as they are to get in these new chapters, all we know is that the eggs are just kept count whenever we see Temmie, like for some odd reason. So I don't even know if they prove a point, but again, very, very obscure the way to get them. But right, mostly I want to talk about the shadow crystals. So, in summary, we learned that the shadow crystals are obtained by the knight themselves. Now, we know this because obviously, if you beat the knight, you end up getting a shadow crystal from them after cracking the sword of them. So, what this means is that we also learned that these shadow crystals have some sort of connection to obviously all the secret bosses in the game and the light world in a way, because every time you look through the shadow crystals, it was like for some strange reason you thought you saw, and then like wherever the light version of the dark world is, like if it was in chapter 2, you said like you thought you saw the computer lab or something, right? But yeah, but again, other main point is that we learned that the shadow crystals can be used because the dialogue after you beat Gerson is like, I found this weird piece of glass in my desk, but I didn't use it because it didn't interest me, but someone really wanted me to. So we learn that the shadow crystals can be used, and some sort of forbidden knowledge is gained upon its usage. Now, whatever that is, we don't know. But again, we get the shadow crystal from beating the knight. Right, when we finally beat it, Susie confronts the knight once again and cracks the black knife. And we get the black shard weapon for Chris and the shadow crystal. So whatever these shadow crystals are made of doesn't really matter in the end. All we know is that at some point the secret bosses, so Jevil and Spamton and even Gerson, they made contact with the knight, and I suppose the knight gave them a shadow crystal for some reason to like be free. And yeah, again, once again, that it ties in with the whole theme of freedom, whatever the hell freedom means. Maybe free of the dark world, free of the like entire world of Deltarune. We don't know, but all we know is that from the knight, the shadow crystals are made and given to others, and upon its usage, you end up going insane, and you kind of figure out like that the world is a game, or like the world that they are in is not like useful in the end, as in like the dark world is obsolete, where you can only be free in the light world. And once again, tying back to what Rouse said, like darkness aren't real in the end. Maybe shadow crystals are realizing that you could be real if you end up escaping into the light world. You could be be free, not be in just a game. You could be a big shot. It's all one big theme of freedom and trying to escape whatever like fictitious prison that they are in. And again, that is very interesting to see, and how the knight is kind of like obviously encouraging like these other broken characters to see this truth. And one of the other things being that, again, first of all, we don't even really know the knight's true identity, which is obviously the big question and one of the main new theories. But through the secret bosses, they are trying to be free of the dark world, I suppose, because why would they want to be stuck in the dark world and be all like fake and only real in the dark, where they could be real all the time? They could be themselves wherever they want to go, and obviously have a much bigger purpose to their lives instead of being just a pawn in the big game that we are controlling in the end, which is again all very interesting plot points to really theorize about. And after all of that is said and done, and almost 20 minutes into the video, I think, now we have to get into all the new stuff that chapter 3 and 4 has brought upon. And this list is more than double than last videos, so I'll try to keep things as close and concise as possible. So first up, I'm going to talk about what is up with Chris. What is their deal? What the hell is wrong with them in these chapters? Second up is the relationship between us, the soul, and Chris. Why is it so bad? What is going on in this co-op dilemma? Third up, I'm going to go into a little more in depth in the weird route. More so in chapter 4, because chapter 3, I'm pretty sure there was not any differences. So chapter 4, weird route, more in depth look at it. Next up, I am going to look at what Asgore is trying to do. Why is he just casually in the holiday house? We don't know. What is his deal? What's going on with Asgore? Next up is trying to figure out the full prophecy. What we didn't see. We didn't see the final prophecy, and what could possibly take place in the future chapters in general. Next up, I'm probably going to talk about the significance of the chapter 3 secret minigame. So, like, what it symbolizes, why does, like, the odd controller just end up there, like, just tying up those odds and ends in that secret minigame. Next up is Des, one of the only characters we haven't seen yet. Other than the knight, we don't know yet. So the significance of Des. And next up is the existence of the world of Deltarune, because some NPCs mentioned that what is Deltarune and all that stuff. So I'm gonna be diving more into that. Next up, I'm going to be taking a look at the man behind the tree. Who are they? What is the significance of the eggs? And what is the significance of the obscurities on how to get the eggs? Because they're very, very weird if you ask me. Next up is the corpse theory being confirmed. Of course, chapter 4 mainly. We got Gerson making an appearance. And obviously we know that Gerson's already dead in the urn. But he can, Darkhold can reanimate the dead. So that's a very interesting thing to touch upon. And finally, I'm going to look at, drumroll please, who is the Roaring Knight? Of course, the question of all questions. So, with all this being said, I am hopefully going to go as in-depth as I possibly can into these questions. So, if you haven't already, sit back and relax. If there's one thing to take away from Chris's character from chapters 3 and 4 is that they have just gotten more and more mysterious over time. In the sense that they could just be silly and goofy with Susie on screen. They could be like alone with Rouse after Rouse tells us to close our eyes, and it cuts to Susie, and Chris acts behind our back and has kind of a hatred towards us, the player and the soul. Like, what I'm saying this from is that, like, especially in the weird route, when it's clearly conveyed that Chris does not want this to happen, he's like wholeheartedly crashes out on us by just throwing us in a trash can and just kicking it about. And other things being right at the end of chapter 3, after we inspect the bunker codes, the door seems to slightly open, and then that's how it ends. That just cuts to chapter 4, us being back in the house. So it's possible that right after chapter 3, Chris actually entered in all 3 codes and actually got access to the bunker and went in for whatever purpose behind our backs, because it cut away to the end credits. Now, in chapter 4, we see that apparently Chris has a good relationship with Carol, Noelle's mom, because after the whole fiasco of Carol finding Susie playing the guitar and all that stuff, right as Chris is about to leave, Carol approaches Chris and and like apologizes to them, saying sorry about that, Chris, and then says like, as you know, you are welcome anytime, and then Chris just leaves. Like, it's very, very mysterious what's going on behind the scenes with Chris, and how his relationships are kind of like building and fracturing at the same time, in the sense that like they're building very good relationships with Susie, fracturing the one with Noelle and the weird route, and definitely a deeper connection with Rousey because of all the jokes of Chris always trying to hug Rousey and all that stuff. But it's safe to say that, again, Toby Vlogs making a lot more questions than answers with Chris, and I think from dwindling everything down from these past 2 chapters, I think Chris is trying to act against us, the player, and trying to do something, like even in some like obscure dialogue when you talk to Ram, when you're doing the secret minigames. Ram was like, oh, did you do all this to have fun like the old days, or something like that. So definitely playing more into the past and how Chris was just in the past, I guess, before we, the soul, showed up, and how he just kind of has a hatred of being controlled, but at the same time they have to deal with it, I guess. But yeah, again, a lot more questions than answers with Chris. Now, what we've seen for the first time in the game was Chris fighting with us, the player, or the soul, right in the middle of the chapter, instead of right at the end, like in chapter 1 and 2. So the main thing here is that obviously we've learned from this that Chris is not on good terms with the soul, controlling him or whatever, and especially not on the weird route. But again, this is really insane to see, because like right in broad daylight we see Chris trying to work behind their backs and trying to communicate whoever is like on his phone or whatever, which I'm speculating to be Carol, but I'll get into more of that later. But yeah, again, just to sum this whole like section up, is that this is the first time we are controlling the soul outside of Chris's body, and obviously like right in the middle of the chapter, no less. Like, we're just roaming around Noelle's house just as an empty soul, and Chris is trying to just do whatever, like without us, like trying to, like, I don't know, maybe just try to do what they used to do, like live their life. Like, one thing that Chris can do behind her backs is like they go off to play Noelle's piano, and they could play like themes from like chapter 2 or whatever. So it's interesting to see how Chris acts specifically without the soul in them, and especially considering that, again, in the weird route, they definitely do not want us being there with Noelle, and obviously they don't want us to inflict this pain on Noelle. That's the whole premise of the weird route. But again, yeah, what the soul's deal is kind of enigmatic. What I can kind of piece together is that all the way from the beginning of chapter 1, where whoever's talking to us says, "Are we there? Are we connected?" And then the soul pops up, and then they're like, "Excellent, truly excellent." And then after that whole intro sequence, they're like, "You can't choose who you are in the world. Your name is Chris." And then I think from then on, at that very point, like, we were inserted as a soul into the game. We were inserted into the world of Deltarune. Like, all the points before Chris even wakes up, everything that happened in the past, what we talked about in the past, Chris was just themselves, carefree, and they're just living their life. But now I feel like we've definitely intruded, and especially considering how people talk about how Chris has been acting and how they talk. Like, sometimes they can sound loud, sometimes it sounds like it's playing on a speaker. So, like, the characters of Deltarune are trying to piece together, like, our differences, the soul's differences and Chris's differences. But yeah, again, at the end of the day, it's it's all one big mystery, and hopefully it can be explained more in the future. Now, what is going to be incredibly anticipated in Chapter 5 is how the Weird Route would be continued, because in Chapter 4, there is a lot that happens with the whole interaction between Chris and Noel. Like, what the hell happened at the end of their encounter, and how after that, Chris just wholeheartedly crashes out, and how after that everything just seems to somehow go back to normal, go back on the same track. But yeah, what happened to Noel? And how did the Thorn Ring stay as, the Thorn Ring in both worlds, the light world and the dark world? Like, how does that make any sort of difference? And like, how we put Noel in a trance in the dark world, and how Chris is always like trying to go behind our backs. And from that one dialogue Noel says where Noel is like, oh yeah, I heard your voice, Chris's voice, and you apologize for everything and all that stuff. But again, at the end of the day, we still don't know what happened to Noel at the end of that. We just know that we gave Noel the Thorn Ring by force, so whatever that little thing was happened. Chris crashes out in the bathroom, and then Carol just orders everyone to leave, according to Asgore, and then we all just leave, and then we just go back to the main Chapter 4 pacing, which is very odd. Now, from Chapter 2, even at the end of there, like, Susie just goes into Noel's room, and Susie was like, okay, let's go. Everything's good now. Like, again, yeah, it's weird, as the name suggests, a weird one. But everything is very, very brief, and we don't really know what happened at the end of Chapter 4. Or I mean, hey, not even the end of Chapter 4, just straight up right in the middle, just that whole Chris-Noel interaction. Because, even in order to carry that out, you have to be kind of, precise with it, in the sense that you have to proceed to not, stay in the vent, then you have to go back into Chris yourself. And then Chris is forced to, shush Noel. And then when we were given the dialogue option, everything changes for the worst. What the hell even was that? My best guess is that was our, breaking point with us and Chris. Because that's when Noel, starts to catch on that there is someone else between her and Chris that is listening into all of this. But yeah, as soon as she figures that out, the whole, equip, the Thorn Ring thing kind of happens. And, yeah, again, we still have no idea what the hell that is. I don't even know what that is. Everyone was at a loss for words. But, again, I know I'm saying this at the end of every single thing, but yeah, hopefully it gets cleared up in the future, but, yeah, for now, all we can do is theorize about it. So, I want to say my going theory is that, or at least one of them, is that, who knows, maybe that could have been the first, actual, I don't know, on-screen death of Noel. It probably wasn't. It was probably just some sort of symbolism. But we still don't know what happened at the end of that interaction. And even at the end of the whole Noel's house part, there's the one very odd moment where Susie stops Chris and tries to talk to Chris. And then we're given a dialogue option, but the box is blank. We could just move around in it. And then everything just goes back to normal after that. So, what I'm getting at is, I think the weird route is us, the soul, trying to, like, break out in a sense, because we have to be confined to Chris. I think we're trying to break out and trying to make ourselves known with the characters of Deltarune. Like, we are trying to make contact with our world and the world of Deltarune, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a work in progress theory, but off the top of my head, that is my headcanon so far. One other notable thing in Chapter 4 was the appearance of Asgore. Every time he appears, it seems he's very out of place, and we have no idea why. The only thing we can grasp is that something happened in the past that led to him and Toriel's divorce, once again, just like an Undertale. And to be honest, I don't think that Asgore ran over Des with his truck, despite all the memes. But yeah, like, regarding that, yeah, every single appearance Asgore is in is kind of awkward for him. Like, he just appears out of the trees and tries to, you know, give Toriel some more flowers first. And then, even in the holiday house, first we see him trying to clean Carol's bathroom, and then even if you find him there, you could end up finding him in Carol and Rudy's bedroom for some reason. And yeah, like, first time you see Asgore in the bathroom, Asgore is like, phew, you know, I can't afford to take a break. Now I'm about to never have to concentrate or whatever. Again, we don't know the exact reason why Asgore is in such a sticky situation, and why he's kind of like in Carol's debt. We don't know why, but clearly Asgore is just trying to, you know, like, get a grip on his life after this whole past tragedy happened. And yeah, like, I would say the most important thing regarding this entire situation is that after you find Asgore in the bathroom cleaning, you could find Asgore in the bedroom of Carol and Rudy, talking about, like, oh, we're almost there, old friend. Whoever he's talking to, we have no idea. And at the end of that dialogue, we learn that Asgore has a black shard. And the only thing we know about the black shard is that in the light world or the dark world, the black shard does not change. And we know that the black shard is attained by fighting the knight. So, did Asgore somehow fight the knight, whoever the knight is? And does Asgore know about the dark world? Like, so many unanswered questions about Asgore. Like, what happened in the past that tore the Dreamer family apart? And yeah, like, obviously Asgore wants everyone to be back together again, but at what cost, we don't know. We just know that Asgore is indebted to the holidays, and he somehow has a black shard. We don't know how, but Asgore, we know he doesn't have any ill intent, but whatever he's up to is very, very shady, and it's definitely notable, considering that, like, from chapter 2, we learned, like, on that bulletin board, it was like discharged from the police or whatever. But again, it was very, like, there's a lot of loose ends that still has to be tied to Asgore, and hope it really is explained in the future. One of the other most important things was chapter 4's whole theme, which was prophecy. Now, what was never explained or showed to us was the quote-unquote final prophecy, how the worlds will be saved, and how a great sacrifice has to be made in order for them to be saved. Now, the most logical thing would think, oh, someone is probably gonna have to die. And I feel like I'm kind of on that board, because, like, even after we seal the fountain and Chris finally goes to bed, and Susie's seen outside the door, Susie's like, we're not gonna let that happen, right? And even when Susie finds the final prophecy, she just calls it dumb and kind of walks it off, although it's clearly very serious if Ralsei, like, does not want Susie to see it at all costs. And again, even throughout the even throughout the chapter, Ralsei seems like very like on edge or like suspicious even, because like Ralsei's trying so hard to hide all this like final prophecy stuff, because clearly the ending doesn't pan out so good for somebody. But other than the main full prophecy, even in the third sanctuary, we can see a couple secret prophecies. One of which being with Asgore, and one of which like being about the angel being banished, and that one we can't even see, but Susie and Ralsei can, because they talk about it. Whatever that is, we still don't know. But at the end of the day, again, everything's up to interpretation. So my interpretation is that the full prophecy is going to result in somebody having to make a sacrifice. Whether it's Susie, maybe it's Chris, we don't know. I doubt it's Chris though. I feel like it might be Susie. But even then, another like theory going around is that like in Susie's Dark World, in the second sanctuary, with the whole picture of, like at last was the girl and all that stuff. The girl, it doesn't really look like Susie. Like Susie doesn't have a sword. Whatever that means, it could the three heroes, like it could like not be Susie. But yeah, even so, like whatever this final prophecy is, I am going to theorize that it has to do with someone having to get sacrificed in order for the world to be saved. What would cause this great calamity, we have no idea. But all I know is that Ralsei clears up that everything the prophecy says will come to pass eventually. Now, what we're hoping for, or what Ralsei is hoping for, is that Ralsei wants to deviate from this supposed like path that's written in the prophecy, if it ends that bad. But maybe someone just might have to be sacrificed, despite despite Susie calling this prophecy dumb because no one would let it happen, and she tries to kind of walk it off. And even at the end of chapter 4, she's like, yeah, we're not gonna let that happen, right? And then walks off. To which Chris then goes to sneak out, and the chapter ends right there, which is an insane cliffhanger. But again, hopefully chapter 5 can elaborate more on this final prophecy, and even some of the secret prophecies as well. Now, a very niche topic to think about is the symbolism and significance of the chapter 3 secret minigames, and why they were so mysterious and disturbing, if anything. Like just recently I saw Pastrospec's video on this. If you don't know who he is, please go subscribe to him. He's an amazing guy. But this whole sequence of minigames and what it's trying to convey is very, very off-putting to the common player. So from what I understand from it is that it is another way of telling us, the player, that yes, Chris is being controlled and they're being puppeted by the soul, which is us, ever since we were, I guess, imported into the game through chapter 1. The other thing being that it talks about Snowgrave, and like one of the minigames is like in the Ice Palace, and the other one being in what looks like Queen's basement from chapter 2, with the whole like deal gone wrong motif in the background, but more bit crushed. Now, again, it's very, very vague what this is trying to tell us, and especially with the Shadow Mantle or Shadow Mantle holder or whatever the hell is talking to Chris, because they're not exactly hostile towards Chris. They're more playful, and it's definitely screaming that they know what is going on and they know how to toy with us somehow. But yeah, it's very, very eerie, and probably one of the most unsettling things Toby Fox has done throughout Undertale and Deltarune. But yeah, I would say what I would get out of it is that yes, Chris is like controlling himself or themselves, sorry, but we're also controlling them, control themselves. But again, at the end of the day, Chris is the one being like controlled or puppeted into, I don't know, just playing the game, playing the world of Deltarune. And again, it's another like pretty much video in and of itself of Chris's whole story. But yeah, I would say it's a very, very niche topic, and I'm hoping it gets explained in the future, as I said with, again, all the other topics. But you know, it's the only thing we can do. We can only speculate. Now, time for one of the more important conversations, which is December holiday. Who are they? And obviously, yeah, just who are they? What is their significance? So, first up, obviously the basics is December holiday is Noelle's older sister, who is apparently some like prodigy in music or whatever the hell. And the only time we do even see them is not even like really in game or significant, which is that one flashback from Tenna. We see the whole Dreamer and Holiday family sitting around the TV watching it during the holidays. But obviously we know that throughout the game, or what the game is implying, is that Des is missing somewhere. We don't know where. People are speculating that Asgore ran her over. But again, memes aside, I don't think that is the case. Other than that theory, people are saying that Des is the knight, which is obviously kind of logical, because again, one of the only characters we haven't seen yet, and there are other similarities, like they have antlers, blah blah blah, whatever. But yeah, other than those, we know that obviously Des is missing. We don't know how. We don't know if she's dead. We don't know if she's not still alive. We don't know anything about Des. We know that probably she's the most mysterious character so far, because again, we haven't even seen her. We know what she is somewhat about, like when we go into her room in Noelle's house. Like, you see there's like musical instruments everywhere, there's like army rations, there's a whole bunch of like random stuff, which is very odd. But yeah, other than that, all we know is that obviously Noelle and Des had a good relationship with each other, and they would always hang out with Chris and Azriel when they were kids. But again, we still don't know who Des is, or where she is, or what she is. But yeah, those are all we can put together so far. Another rather niche topic to talk about is the existence of the world of Deltarune, because also considering that this wasn't really a question in the first couple chapters, but now that chapter 4 came out, there's a whole bunch of things talking about Deltarune. Like, some of the characters in there are sentient of what Deltarune is, I guess. Like in the second and third sanctuaries, some of the organics are like whose dream is this? Blah blah blah. Like my dream, Susie's dream, Knight's dream, whatever. Like even in battle, they're like what is Deltarune, or something like that. And then obviously at the end of chapter 4, there's the fable my Deltarune, blah blah blah. And hey, even the man behind the tree talks about it, saying whether it be 100 days or 100 years, Deltarune will be waiting. It's probably, I would say, more mysterious than like Des or something. Like, it's so niche and vague that we don't even know where to start theorizing. Like, we don't know what pieces to put together and what we're trying to solve. Now, my ongoing headcanon is that chapter 1 was someone's plan to import us, the player, into the universe of Deltarune through a red soul, which is then placed into Chris right after that whole like fake character select thing. Now, yeah, I said one of the reasons why I think that is because of how much is said about like the past, and like when Chris and Noelle and whoever else were kids, like they have a backstory. They used to spend time together like normal people, but what, all of a sudden things are getting messed up because because now Chris is being controlled by something. Obviously people don't know that, but whoever input us into the game through this red soul, we're now input into Chris for some odd reason, obviously, to which we don't know. And again, the whole man behind the tree thing, saying Deltarune will be waiting, it's all one big mystery. I don't even know where to start, but I guess I could touch upon it slightly. And once again, another thing that Toby Fox had to make such a inconvenience for us theorists is the whole situation between the man behind the tree. Who is he? What is his deal? What is all the whole significance of the eggs? What is all that about? Now, what I can say is that it got so much more tedious comparing from chapters 1 and 2, because chapters 1 and 2, all we had to do to interact with the man and get the egg was just going in and out between certain rooms, and the man doesn't even talk to you in chapters 1 and 2. Chapters 3 and 4, you have to do these such niche things to finally even get the egg. And now, getting the chapter 3 egg, what we do know some valuable information, which is that the man behind the tree tells us where all the eggs are, from the past chapters and now the future chapters, because he says on Thursday I buy a donut, Friday I go to the trash, Saturday I can't remember what he said for Saturday, but yeah, those all allude to where the other chapters' eggs were, and now we also know where the eggs would be in the future chapters. Now, what this means, again, we don't know. We don't even know what the eggs are. We just know that we get them in the dark world, they stay the same in the light world, and in chapters 1 and 2, we place them around in random areas. In chapters 1 egg, we place it in Asgore's fridge. In chapter 2, we place it in the egg carton in Sans grocery store. Now, again, what all of this means, we don't know. We don't know who the man behind the tree is. We don't know what he talks about, with it being, this is the only world I can communicate still. Deltarune will be waiting, whether it be 100 days, 100 years. It's so mysterious, and we don't even know if this would even tie into the game somehow. Why is this even a thing? We don't know. All I know is that I think through this is another way that Toby Fox is torturing us theorists, trying to speculate something from these niche puzzle pieces. Now, if there's at least one thing we can be proud about in the theorist community, is that corpse theory got confirmed with chapter 4 and Gerson, because we know that ever since chapter 1, we see that Gerson has long since passed, and we know his son Alvin is the church pastor. And now that chapter 4 is the whole theme about prophecy, and it took place in the church, and obviously seeing Gerson after the first sanctuary, we again get outright confirmed that yes, Gerson has passed on, but his dust is being kept in this urn that is kept in Alvin's desk. Now, again, what this means is that, to break down corpse theory for you, is that the theory was going around that even before chapter 3 and 4 was that dark worlds can revive the dead. I can't outright remember how this theory was formed in the first place, but again, that's kind of the basics for the theory. And now chapter 4 confirmed that with Gerson. Saw him all throughout chapter 4. He was kind of like one of the main characters in that chapter, because obviously again, like from seeing him just throughout the first sanctuary, and then we see him again for the finale of chapter 4 after fighting the Titan, and again him even being the secret boss, which was very unexpected. But yeah, there's not really much to say about it because again it's a super rare confirmed theory, thankfully. But yeah, again, corpse theory is a thing, which again could lead to another plot point in speculating that Des could be the Knight, even if she's dead somehow, because the Dark World could revive her, whatever, you know. It's now time for the most anticipated question in the entire fandom, I would say. Who is the Roaring Knight? Now, for me, personally, I think there are 3 possible candidates, but more so 2, not so much the third. And they are Des Holiday, Carol Holiday, and Asgore. Again, you might be thinking, why the hell Asgore? Well, okay, first up, my reasoning is that Asgore, okay, for one, to just get the random stuff out of the way, Asgore has horns, and yeah, you could say the Knight has more like antlers instead of horns, or whatever, you could call it the same thing. Chapter 4, Asgore has been pretty suspicious, I would say, and chapter 3, we don't even see him at all. Yeah, I would say Asgore is suspicious in chapter 4 because he just randomly appears out of nowhere after the whole church sequence tutorial, and then all of a sudden we see him in the Holiday household. Like, it's pretty random. And right, I would say another familiar with the sprites of the Knight is, like, if you look at them side by side, you see Asgore's battle sprite in Undertale and the Knight's battle sprite. And you can see they have like similar like shoulder pads, you could say. Again, I don't know if it really ties into anything. Well, again, that's why Asgore is kind of like a maybe like very like slight chance that he's the Knight. And another kind of important detail is that like every fountain kind of has a place where where it says a large person can easily fit inside. Like chapter 1, we see yeah, the first fountain was in the spare classroom, and right beside the spare classroom was where like the grand fountain was supposed to be, but there's still a door there. Chapter 2, there's that closet with like a whole bunch more technology, says a large person can easily fit inside. Chapter 3, I mean, yeah, there isn't an exact moment where it says a large person can easily fit inside, but I feel like if it's like if it's the Dreamer household, I feel like Asgore would know his way around to hide. And chapter 4, at the end, after we fight the Titan, you go to that one door on the right where you inspect it. I'm pretty sure that also says a large person can easily fit inside. And when you want to turn the doorknob, all Chris does is turn the doorknob but not open the door, which is another thing that could tie into like Carol or Des, like, you know, like another theory of Chris is working with the Knight for some unknown reason. But yeah, now more to like the actual possible candidates, which is Des and Carol. Now, for starters, yes, Des and Carol, they're reindeer. They have the antlers. Now Des is again one of the only unseen characters we like so far. And apparently Des was kind of like almost a role model, like in the past, like from all the stories we hear about Chris, Azriel, Noel, and Des, they all used to like hang out together. And I feel like after exploring Des's room with all those like random stuff over there, like I want to say that Chris almost takes an inspiration from Des, because Des is like, I don't know, so like talented with all of these stuff, where Chris kind of looks up to her as like a role model, kind of like Azriel. Because I say this because again, if Chris is working with the Knight, that could be a reason why Des could be the Knight. And like even like a very niche detail is that like the first sprite we see the Knight like with their back turned or whatever, that's the same sprite Chris does when Chris poses with Susie and Ralsei. But yeah, again, it's niche. It doesn't really explain much, but again, we do know that Chris could be working with the Knight. Now, from saying how it could be Carol, so what we actually do see on screen that Carol and Chris have a like plan, almost like they're plotting something, I don't know. But yeah, again, we do see the whole sequence of after Chris takes the soul out, see someone talking to Chris through their phone. I would say this is still Carol, because after Susie gets the guitar, Chris like calls up whoever is on the phone, and then the phone literally says, "I'll be right there," and then Carol shows up. And then yeah, another thing being, Carol actually has a katana just in the house, like in the kitchen, I think. Like yeah, another thing I think someone else said was that like if Carol were to bring the katana in the Dark World, because it's an actual weapon, maybe it's so strong that it just makes the Knight, that strong, because it is an actual katana. It's so powerful, it just stays the same. Instead of like Chris's weapons just being a pencil in the Light World, but swords in the Dark World. So yeah, speaking of which, that is kind of another like off-topic question, but like if Chris just carries a knife around, we don't know what that turns into in the Dark World. But yeah, again, I would say those are probably the most possible candidates. But again, I wish I could choose between Carol and Des, but they do have their similarities, and what we have so far up until chapter 4, this is all we can grasp. So I don't know, I can't confirm. I wish I could, but yeah, I don't know. It's probably why I'm gonna leave this theory. And there you have it, ladies and gents. I doubt anyone has even watched this long, but hey, if you did, thanks for watching, But yeah, anyways, again, thankfully I was able to get this out. I know it's very late as I'm recording this outro. It is like mid-August compared to like almost mid-July when I first started this video. Yeah, very sorry for the late upload. But again, hey, thanks for all your support, everybody. It means a lot. And yeah, just thanks for watching. As always. Yeah, leave all your theories down in the comments if you have any. Maybe any support on how to make videos like this, because obviously I'm an amateur. But yeah, I would say, like, for me personally, to do videos like this, I should probably stick to like a scripted video, so it sounds a lot more organized, and probably practice more of my editing skills. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, sorry, going on like rambling a little bit. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any more theories down in the comments below for Deltarune. Super excited for the supposed 2026 release of Chapter 5. And hopefully we can get some questions answered. And it'll be a miracle if they are. But, I'm in the same boat as every single Deltarune fan ever. So, we're just gonna keep praying, I guess. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry for a very, very long video. But, hey, some people like that stuff. So, especially me. I'm all for it as well. But anyways, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys